Well, hello everybody, and welcome to episode 48, 48 of the Unstoppable Entertainment Show, the most comprehensive entertainment news show on the internet. I am, of course, Nate Schaffner, otherwise known as the Unstoppable Nate. I'm sorry it's been a little bit since my last episode. I've been very, very busy with work. But I do have plenty to talk about. But I do apologize for the brief hiatus. Uh, so how are y'all doing? I hope you're doing well. Um, and I hope that this show provides a brief break from whatever it is you're going through in life. At least it does for me. You know, this show is very fun for me to do. I have to selfishly admit. Um, So, before I get started today, I just wanted to remind everybody that if you like this show, go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, spread the word, tell your friends. Also, if you have a comment, a question, or if you'd like me to talk about certain movies or franchises, you can email me anytime at the address listed in the description of this video. Okay, so this particular episode is going to be a little bit different because part of the purpose, uh, part of what I wanted this show to be about when I first started was not necessarily about it. I didn't want it to just be about movie news as far as like casting news, who's going to be directing what movies are coming out. I also wanted to talk about some behind the scenes stuff and the more um, business aspects of what is going on in the film industry. Um, and I was talking to a very good friend of mine. Her name is Candice Luce. I met her while working on a Netflix movie. Um, and we were talking about we were texting, and we were texting back and forth about how there's uh, the Writers Guild of America, the staff has authorized a strike, um, and it looks like there could be another uh, um, another strike. The Directors Guild of America could go on strike again, and um, you know, she was she mentioned to me that um, film productions have been cut 60% worldwide, which I honestly I didn't know, um, and uh, she said there hasn't been a lot of work, um, and it's all very distressing. And there's something else that has been going on in the industry over the past month, that has, I would say, kind of been a seismic shift in the industry. And the reason I haven't talked about it on the show is because um, there's been a lot of information coming over a very short amount of time. So I wanted the reason why I've haven't talked about it is because it is so I personally could get all my shit together about it, and all my ducks in a row, um, and so that I could could get it all straight and present it to you, uh, um, and present it to you, what's uh, concisely. I guess is the right word. I guess is the word I'm looking for. And that bit of news has been, um, Netflix, of course, has it looks like they're going to be buying Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers went up for sale. There were several bids. Netflix had the best one, and there's been some internal studio internal drama within various studios, but it looks like Netflix is going to end up being the company that buys Warner Brothers. So it's been about a month since news first broke about it, and I wanted to, if you'll indulge me, I wanted to take you through. I mean, this is really kind of a this is really kind of an adventure. This is quite a journey. And I wanted to take you all through it from the for those who know nothing about it. I wanted to take you all through it from the very beginning and um, tell you how I felt about it at that time and how the more information came out, how my feelings about it may or may not have changed over that period of time. So, if you'll indulge me, this is I was up late last night compiling notes for what I wanted for how I wanted to present this and compiling information about this. So if you'll indulge me, this is what I'm going to talk about today. So, for those who don't know, on October 21st of last year, I believe October 21st of last year, Warner Brothers Discovery went up for sale. And the reason it went up for sale was to there was a merger between Warner Media and Discovery. Between Warner Media and Discovery, there was a merger and there was restructuring going on, and then there was also additional financial pressure. I believe Warner Brothers Discovery was $50 billion in debt. So Warner Brothers Discovery went up for sale, and the reason it went up for sale was to address these issues. And there were numerous bids by several film companies and film studios. And on December 5th of last year, it was revealed in this report from Variety by Todd Spangler, Netflix to buy Warner Brothers and HBOMAX in an $82.7 billion deal. Now, and this article says it's official, and this again was on December 5th of last year. In a move that will dramatically reshape the entertainment business, Netflix and Warner Brothers Discovery announced an agreement Friday under which Netflix will acquire Warner Brothers, including its film and TV studios, its gaming business, HBOMAX, and HBO. The deal has a total enterprise value, including debt, of approximately $82.7 billion, with an equity value of $72 billion, the companies said. The announcement of Netflix's deal to buy the Warner Brothers streaming and studios business came after a weeks-long bidding war that pitted the streaming giant against David Ellison's Paramount Skydance and Comcast. More about the Paramount Skydance thing later. News broke Thursday evening that Netflix had entered into exclusive negotiations with Warner Brothers Discovery on a deal for Warner Brothers and HBO Max. So, this, and again, this is, I'm going to take you, this all happened on December 5th. The deal is going to take at least a year. So, for those who don't know, before, I forget when, but it was before Warner Brothers went up for sale. Warner Brothers Discovery announced that they were going to be splitting their company in two. One for their Warner Brothers, like their film stuff, and one for their TV assets. The Netflix Warner Brothers deal will not close until after the Warner Brothers film and TV split. I hope I'm making sense. And Netflix is only interested in Warner Brothers and HBO Max. They are not interested in the TV assets. And again, at the time of this announcement, Netflix spokespeople for Netflix stated that the Warner Brothers studio will stay intact and put out theatrically released films. HBO Max will continue to operate as a standalone service. And that most of the creative leadership at Warner Brothers will stay on. That is Mike DeLuca, who is the co-chair of Warner Brothers Films, Pam Abdi, who is the other co-chair of Warner Brothers Films, and James Gunn, who is the co-CEO of DC Studios. So, here's how I felt about it at that time. First of all, as a film fan, as a cinephile, as a fan of film history, it is incredibly heartbreaking, at least for me, to see remnants of old Hollywood slip away. And you know, I get it. You know, it's these streaming and everything like that. You know, streaming is the way of the future, and I understand that. But I'm never going to get tired of going to the movies, ever. And um, it's very bittersweet to see um, a film studio that is beloved and cherished as much as Warner Brothers is. It's heartbreaking to see that get swallowed up. So, at that, here were my thoughts on this at that time. If I, in a perfect world, I would love for Warner Brothers to not be up for sale. And Warner Brothers stay Warner Brothers. I understand why it went up for sale. But in an ideal world, I would rather have not. I would rather it not. Um, at that time, and this is again back in December, I hated the idea of Netflix buying Warner Brothers because Netflix was never in um, Netflix isn't a movie studio. It is a company that puts out movies on television that are they're not their movies are the stuff that Netflix puts out is not driven by creativity. It's driven by analytics. Netflix would have never made, like, if you look at the movies that Warner Brothers has put out this past year alone, Netflix would have never made those movies because that doesn't fit into their analytics. Um, so I hated the idea of Netflix buying Warner Brothers because to me, in my mind, I was like, this is going to be the death of at least for Warner Brothers films. This is going to be the death of theatrically released movies. This is just the first step. Um, Now, I also want to point out that it was um, when it was announced that Netflix was going to buy Warner Brothers, it was also stated that the DC movies and TV shows will move from HBOMAX to Netflix after the merger, after Netflix buys Warner Brothers. But again, I hated the idea of Netflix buying Warner Brothers because I was like, Netflix is going to kill the movie going experience. I also thought, and there was this, Netflix, and their CEO, Ted Sarandos. Again, and this is at that time, back in December. They said all these things that Warner Brothers, the Warner Brothers studio will stay intact and put out theatrically released films. HBO Max will continue to operate as a standalone service, and all the creative leadership will stay intact. They say all that, but it wouldn't be the first time that that one company says, "Oh, we're going to do this with your company," and then they turn out to be lying. And that was my fear, is that when it was first announced that Netflix is by Warner Brothers, but Ted Sarandos and everybody at Netflix was like, "Oh no, everything was going to be fine. We're going to theatrically release Warner Brothers movies, blah 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 blah." I was like, "You're lying. You're lying." And I see you, and I see your bullshit, because Netflix has never been in the business of theatrically releasing movies. And personally, I can't stand when Netflix movies are up for Oscar consideration, because they're not really. I mean, they're released in theaters for like a week. I mean, it baffles me. Also, Netflix makes shitty movies. I've seen less than 10 Netflix original movies, including the one I worked on, that are good. I do not understand how the Netflix shows are so awesome, and yet their movies suck. I don't get it. But this was all how I felt when it was announced that Netflix was going to acquire Warner Brothers. Okay. So, and this was all on December 5th of last year. So then on December 8th, Paramount Skydance, who was one of the other studios that was in the bidding wars to acquire Warner Brothers, Paramount Skydance, and they launched a hostile bid for Warner Brothers Discovery. Now, for those who don't know what a hostile bid is, basically a hostile bid is an attempt by one company to acquire another company without the approval or consent of uh, the the target company's board of directors. So basically, what Paramount Skydance wanted to do, they wanted to their hostile bid meant, oh, we still want to acquire Warner Brothers, but we're going to do it without the approval or Warner Brothers consent of their board of directors. In other words, I believe Paramount Skydance was going to appeal to Warner Brothers, the shareholders of Warner Brothers, and attempt to persuade them to um, to say yes to Paramount Skydance. They're going to completely bypass the leadership at Warner Brothers and go straight to the shareholders. And I have some details about that. So this was, again, back on December 8th. Paramount Skydance launched a hostile bid for Warner Brothers Discovery. Yes, so it does in this article say Paramount will go straight to Warner Brothers Discovery shareholders with an all-cash $30 per share offer. That's the same bid that Warner Brothers Discovery rejected and equates to an enterprise value of $108.4 billion. So, basically, okay, So remember how I said that Netflix's offer was for uh, Warner Brothers and HBO Max. Paramount Skydance's offer was for all of Warner Brothers. Their film the sorry, the Paramount Skydance's offer was for uh, the Warner Brothers, HBO Max, and their TV assets. All of Warner Brothers. And Paramount's offer of $30 a share was more than Netflix's. Netflix's, I think, was like $27.75 or something like that. It was less than Paramount Skydance's offer. And so um, Paramount Skydance went to the shareholders at Warner Brothers Discovery, and the shareholders would have had to vote and approve of uh, of all of this. And I had a couple of questions about this. First of all, why didn't um, why didn't Paramount Skydance make this their initial offer? Like what why wasn't this their best bid in the first place? That was my question. So the other thing that came into my mind, and again, I'm describing how I felt as this is happening. At that time, I was like, I'd kind of like to see, again, in an ideal world, I would love for Warner Brothers to stay Warner Brothers and not be sold off and acquired by another company or another film studio. At that time, I was like, "Oh, Paramount's going to do a hostile takeover. This is I at that time I was like, I would love that because I would rather because again, Netflix is not a film studio. They're a media company. Um, and the reason I was for Paramount Skydance buying Warner Brothers was like, oh, a film studio is going to own another film studio. And they're going to have this rich library of great films over the past 100 years. You know, so that's why at that time I was for Paramount Skydance and acquiring Warner Brothers through this hostile takeover. But I had questions about it, like why didn't you make this offer in the first place? You know, things like that. So another thing happened and this is on December 8th, because um, I think in many people's minds, including mine, Netflix acquiring Warner Brothers, what is like the fear is that this is going to kill theatrically released movies for Warner Brothers at least. So another thing happened on December 8th, where Netflix CEO Ted Sarandos did a complete 180 in terms of theatrically releasing films, and this is interesting. Um, so and again, I have to clarify. This was on December 8th of last year. In the This article was on Deadline, published by Anthony D'Alessandro. In the wake of freaking out the industry and theater owners with its winning bid for Warner Brothers, followed by Paramount's hostile takeover proposal, Netflix co CEOs Ted Sarandos and Greg Peters jumped on a Wall Street call again to pour cold water on the fire, specifically as it relates to theatrical. Excuse me. In this transaction, we pick up three businesses we're not currently in. So we have no redundancies currently, said Sarandos. Excuse me. One of them is a motion picture studio with a theatrical distribution machine. We're deeply committed to releasing those movies exactly the way they would release those movies today, said Sarandos about staying true to the theatrical model once the streamer snaps up the 102-year-old motion picture studio. All three of these new businesses we want to keep operating largely as they are, he added, specifying that the other two are Warner's TV production business and HBO. The theatrical business, we talked a lot about it in the past about wanting to do it because we've never been in that business. When this deal closes, we are in that business and we're going to do it. Um, and this article does go on to something else he said. He says, if we did this deal 24 months ago, all those movies we saw this year do so well for Warner Brothers would have been released in the same way in theaters. I'm talking about Minecraft. I'm talking about Superman. I'm talking about Weapons. I'm talking about Sinners. And this goes on. These movies, he also says, these movies will be released on Netflix through theaters the way Warner Brothers did it before, but with the Warner Brothers operating entity. Okay. So, this statement from him on December 8th kind of maybe start to come around. And I say start to come around because Ted Sarandos does have a history of being a little bit hypocritical when it comes to theatrically released movies. You know, he's kind of said things that, oh, you get the same kind of experience from watching a movie at home, and you can watch a movie anywhere, on a plane, and it's the same experience, and it's like, so he's kind of said questionable things, and in my mind, wrong things. However, all this about, you know, um, you know, he says when this deal closes, we are in the theatrical business. I have to admit, I started to come around about this. Like, okay, and he says this whole Warner Brothers movies will be released to Netflix. That says to me that after this deal closes, after a Warner Brothers movie plays in theaters, it will be streaming on Netflix and not HBO Max or Max or whatever the fuck it is. So I started to come around then. Um, and he also, um, I wanted to see. So he also mentioned something regarding a theatrical release window. Now, for those of you who don't know what that means, a theatrical release window is basically, okay, how long are we going to play our movie in theaters? How long is this going to play in theaters? And he mentioned a 45-day theatrical window, which again means that this movie is going to play in theaters for 45 days, which is the post pandemic standard. Before that, it was 90 days, I believe. I would rather have that because the longer a movie plays in theaters, the more chances it has of making money for your company. Plus, if it's look, I rarely see movies more than once in the theater anymore, but if something's really, really, really fucking good, I'll do it. But I would rather, but the 45-day theatrical window is the post-pandemic standard, and that's honestly that's better than what I thought it was going to be, a 45-day theatrical window. So I started to come around. Now, I also and I'm going to preface this by saying I believe that what intelligent people do is, like, let's say I have an opinion about anything. Like, if I have an opinion about something, or if I feel a certain way about something, and new evidence is brought to light about that, about how I feel about that, like when new evidence presents itself, depending on what the evidence proves, I'm going to change my mind. Like, intelligent people change their minds based on evidence. Or intelligent people should change their mind. A lot of people just go, that's what the evidence says, but, anyway. So one thing that I didn't realize, because, and again, when it was announced that Netflix was going to buy Warner Brothers, I was like, oh crap, this is going to be the death of, at least in Warner Brothers, for Warner Brothers, it's going to be the death of theatrically released movies. What I did not realize was that if you look at, and I'm not going to go into the numbers, but if you look at the top 5 movie theater chains in North America, and what those top 5 movie theater chains are worth combined, if Ted Sarandos and Netflix wanted to, they have enough money to buy all 5 of those theater chains. If Ted Sarandos and Netflix wanted to kill the movie-going experience, they have the money to do it. And that is something that I didn't realize. I was like, wait a minute. So also from that perspective, with that in mind, and the fact that Ted Sarandos has said, "Oh, we're going to release Warner Brothers movies in theaters." If Netflix wanted to kill the movie-going experience, they would, because they have the money. So I started to come around. again, in an ideal world, um, I wish Warner Brothers wasn't. I wish Warner Brothers was going to stick around, but it is what it is. So then, on December 15th, and this is on Cord Cutters News. On December 15th of last year, excuse me, the CEOs of Netflix, Greg Peters and Ted Sarandos, addressed concerns about the deal that was in a letter sent to, I believe, the employees of Warner Brothers. And part of what is in that letter, he addresses certain behind the scenes issues and concerns about the deal, and he addresses them like as questions, and then he answers them. Like he asks us a question: how do we feel about Paramount's hostile bid? And then he answers it, and then they answer it, I should say. And one of the things that was addressed, and I'm just going to read this here: will we preserve theatrical releases as part of Warner Brothers Discovery's distribution model? He answers, yes. We're fully committed to releasing Warner Brothers movies in theaters just as they do today. Theatrical is an important part of their business and legacy, and we don't want to change what makes Warner Brothers so valuable. If this deal had happened 2 years ago, hits like Minecraft and Superman would still have premiered on the big screen as they did, and that's how we plan to keep it. We haven't prioritized theatrical in the past because that wasn't our business at Netflix. When this deal closes, we will be in that business. That is key. That is the part that I wanted to read for you guys. We haven't prioritized theatrical in the past because that wasn't our business at Netflix. When this deal closes, we will be in that business. So essentially he's saying Warner Brothers is in the theatrical movie business, and we own Warner Brothers, and we're going to continue to do what Warner Brothers did. And he also says we don't want to change what makes Warner Brothers so valuable. Warner Brothers, I was watching this docu-series with my mom and sister and my wife, 100 Years of Warner Brothers. And Warner Brothers as a studio has a 100-year history of what's the word I'm looking for? Shepherding creativity. They allow the filmmakers to make the kind of movie that they want to make. Clint Eastwood has been at Warner Brothers for pretty much his entire career. Warner Brothers is a very director-friendly, creativity-friendly studio, and they have been for over 100 years. And it, again, Ted Sarandos, the co-CEOs of Netflix, are doubling down on that's what makes Warner Brothers. This is what makes Warner Brothers special. We don't want to take that away. He's doubling down on these and on theatrical releasing movies and addressing concerns because everybody has them. and he doubles down, and um, again, that was reassuring to hear. And again, I personally starting to come around on Netflix buying Warner Brothers. Okay. 2 days later, on October 17th, no, I'm sorry, December 17th, December 17th of last year, this article is in Variety and was published by Todd Spangler. Warner Brothers Discovery rejects Paramount $30 a share acquisition offer, calling it inferior to Netflix deal and alleging the Ellisons, that's David Ellison and his dad. David Ellison is, I want to make sure I get this right. David Ellison is the chairman and CEO of Paramount Skydance. So Warner Brothers Discovery rejects Paramount $30 a share acquisition offer, calling it inferior to the Netflix deal and alleging that the Ellisons aren't providing a full backstop for financing. So Warner Brothers rejected Paramount Skydance's offer. And I want to. There's something in here that I wanted. Okay. So there's something in this article that I wanted to read. This article was on Variety, published by Todd Spangler. The term Warner Brothers. Let's see. Okay. Warner Brothers Discovery said the terms of the Netflix merger are superior. The Paramount Skydance offer provides inadequate value and imposes numerous significant risks and costs on Warner Brothers Discovery. The company also documented the sequence of interactions with Paramount. According to Warner Brothers Discovery Board's letter, Paramount, quote, has consistently misled Warner Brothers Discovery shareholders that its proposed transaction has a full backstop from the Ellison family. It does not and never has, unquote. Per the Warner Brothers Discovery Board, the most recent Paramount Skydance proposal includes a $40.65 billion equity commitment for which there is no Ellison family commitment of any kind. Instead, they propose that you rely on an unknown and opaque revocable trust for the certainty of this crucial deal funding. Warner Brothers is referring to the irrevocable trust held by Larry Ellison, the tech mogul and ultra-wealthy father of David Ellison, who is the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery. Oh, I'm sorry. No, David Ellison is the CEO of Paramount Skydance, not Warner Brothers Discovery. Let's see. So, basically, Ellison is the CEO of Paramount Skydance. So basically, there were terms in the Paramount Skydance deal that put Warner Brothers Discovery at risk. And that is not the case with Netflix. It's not the case at all. There were things in that Paramount Skydance deal that if that Paramount Skydance deal went through could cause Warner Brothers Discovery a lot of trouble, which is the last thing they want and need. And the Netflix deal is more solid. Okay. So then, a few days later, on December 23rd, there's this article on Yahoo Finance. Larry Ellison, David Ellison's father, personally guaranteed that $40 billion backing. And Paramount and Warner Brothers Discovery said it's still not good enough because Netflix, again, has the more solid foundation. This article is on Yahoo Finance, published by Ross Kerber and Don Kopecki. Paramount Skydance's latest offer to buy Warner Brothers Discovery is still not good enough for prominent shareholder Harris Oakmark, the investor told Reuters on Monday. The changes in Paramount's new offer were necessary but not sufficient, Harris Oakmark, portfolio manager and director of U.S. research Alex Fitch, said in an email to Reuters. We see the two deals as a toss-up, and there is a cost to changing paths. If Paramount is serious about winning, they're going to need to provide a greater incentive. So, there were questions. So, Larry Ellison, who is the father of David Ellison, again, David Ellison owns Paramount Skydance. Larry Ellison was now personally guaranteeing a $40 billion was personally guaranteeing $40 billion of the bid to secure Warner Brothers. But there were still questions about the financing that was held in a revocable trust, and there were Warner Brothers investors that were unsure whether they would accept the offer. And again, Netflix, as far as Warner Brothers Discovery is concerned, Netflix has the more solid foundation. They're not at risk with Netflix like they would be at Paramount. Okay. Now here's where it gets really dramatic. And not in a good way. On January 12th of this year, this article is on Reuters, published by Aditya Soni. Paramount sues Warner Brothers for Netflix deal details. Paramount Skydance sued Warner Brothers Discovery for more information on a rival $82.7 billion deal with Netflix, escalating a battle to take control of one of the most storied Hollywood studios. So, in a letter to shareholders, Paramount also said it would propose an amendment to Warner Brothers bylaws that would require shareholder approval for any separation of the media giant's cable TV business, which is key to the Netflix deal. Paramount's argument is that its all-cash bid of $30 per share for the whole of Warner Brothers is superior to Netflix's cash and stock offer of $27.75 per share for the studios and streaming assets and will more easily clear regulatory hurdles. So, in other words, David Ellison and Paramount Skydance went, wah, we're not getting our way. We're going to sue Warner Brothers. That's basically what they did. They cried like little babies. We're not getting our way. Let's sue them. Sorry, I don't know why I did that. This made me do a complete 180 of how I felt about Paramount Skydance taking over Warner Brothers Discovery. This makes Paramount Skydance look weak and pathetic. And this was a bold and questionable tactic. And quite honestly, it makes me look at David Ellison and everybody at Paramount a lot differently as well. And it doesn't help that lately Paramount's been in a lot of trouble. They look, Paramount movie studios. Here's what I'm trying to say. Whether movie fans will admit it or not, film franchises are what drives the industry and help make money so that non-franchise films can be made. What franchises does Paramount have? Let's give a look-see, shall we? Un momento, por favor. Let's see. Okay. They have what Paramount I literally Googled this. What film franchises does Paramount own? Transformers. Mission Impossible, that's done. Mission Impossible's done. Not creatively speaking, that story is done. Star Trek. Okay. I can get behind that. Top Gun. Is that a franchise though? There've only been 2. A Quiet Place. Okay. Sonic the Hedgehog. Okay. SpongeBob SquarePants. Okay. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Paranormal Activity. Scream. And Terminator. Terminator's fucking dead, too. Um, Jack Ryan. So there won't be another Star Trek movie for a few years. So basically, some of the franchises that Paramount owns are good, and some of them aren't. But is I would say that sorry, just a second. Um, I would say that Paramount is really struggling. They've shut down Paramount Television Studios, um, and they merged with Skydance. They've and their streaming service, Paramount Plus, is lagging. I actually know a couple people who are aware of what's going on with the whole Netflix, Warner Brothers, Paramount, Skydance thing. I actually know a couple people who, when David Ellison and Paramount sued Warner Brothers when this happened, I know a couple people who unsubscribed to Paramount Plus and uh, will uh, no longer go see any movie that is distributed by Paramount Studios because of how petty and pathetic David Ellison and everybody at Paramount is acting right now. Like they're literally saying fuck Paramount. So yeah, so all this happened with Paramount Skydance. They sued Warner Brothers because they're not getting their way, and it just makes them look like a bunch of babies. Okay, so on January, and that was on January 12th. So on January 14th, um, Netflix changed their offer, changed their Warner Brothers Discovery offer to an all cash offer. Now, here's why that's important. An all cash offer means, first of all, it's more appealing to the shareholders. And the reason it's more appealing to the shareholders is because by Netflix offering all cash, it means that Netflix buying Warner Brothers could happen a lot quicker than it would if they stood by their previous offer. So Netflix could own Warner Brothers a lot sooner than originally stated. The guys at Paramount and Skydance aren't gonna like that, but fuck them. So that's why that all cash offer is important. So, um, then let's see here. So, um, So this article is on CNBC, published on January 14th. By Lillian Rizzo. Netflix is likely to amend its offer for Warner Brothers Discovery's assets, making an all-cash bid. Bloomberg first reported this article does go on. Bloomberg first reported this week that Netflix was considering adjusting its offer to be all cash. An amended offer would allow Warner Brothers Discovery shareholders to vote to approve the offer on a faster timeline. Under the current deal, shareholders are expected to vote on the deal in the spring or early summer. And this article goes on, if Netflix were to make its offer all cash, the shareholder vote could move up to as early as late February or early March. So yeah, that's essentially. So the all cash offer could mean that this deal goes through a lot sooner, like I said. Okay, so then the next day, January 15th, so because of that all cash offer, which would expedite the Netflix Warner Brothers deal, Ellison and Paramount Skydance tried to get a court order to expedite their lawsuit. Some of this, some of this shit you just can't make up. Okay, so Paramount tried to get a court order to expedite their lawsuit, and the judge declined the court order. Let's see. This article is on Deadline, published by Jill Goldsmith. Judge declines to fast-track Paramount lawsuit amid Warner merger fight. David Ellison and Paramount Skydance will extend tender offer. A Delaware Chancery Court judge ruled today that Paramount has not identified any irreparable harm to itself as a Warner Brothers Discovery shareholder that would justify expedited disclosure as it pursues a hostile tender offer for the media giant. Paramount, as a stockholder, must suffer cognizable, irreparable harm. It has not identified any, Chancellor Morgan T. Zern said from the bench at the conclusion of a hearing this morning. And again, this was on January 15th. In a statement after the decision... Okay. So... Warner Brothers Discovery said the lawsuit by Paramount Skydance was yet another unserious attempt to distract, and the judge saw right through it. So, again, this is embarrassing on David Ellison and Paramount's part. It's incredibly petty. And look, I cannot believe that I'm saying this. I'm all for being petty. Like sometimes being petty feels pretty good. Like even Superman was petty at one point. But pick your battles. Like come on now. This is just embarrassing. So, The day after that, January 16th, this article is on Deadline, published by Anthony D'Alessandro. Ted Sarandos, CEO of Netflix, says Netflix will commit to 45-day window after Warner Brothers acquisition. A little ways down here, this article says a quote from Ted Sarandos. When this deal closes, we will own a theatrical distribution engine that is phenomenal and produces billions of dollars of theatrical revenue that we don't want to put at risk, Sarandos told the New York Times. I'm giving you a hard number. If we're going to be in the theatrical business, and we are, we're competitive people. We want to win. I want to win opening weekend. I want to win box office. Okay. This, and again, Ted Sarandos says, we didn't do that at Netflix because that's not what we do. Warner Brothers does that, so we're going to do what Warner Brothers does. A 45-day theatrical window. I'd prefer the 90, but 45 days is the post-pandemic standard. This was on January 16th of this year. This statement, now I trust Ted Sarandos and what he says. Because here's the thing. He has doubled, Ted Sarandos has doubled and tripled down what he says about releasing movies theatrically. You can't do that. Like, if he changes his mind now, there's going to be problems. He now, because of everything that he has said from December 5th up to January 16th. Because of everything he said, if he goes against what he said, he's got so much to lose. And he knows that. I think. You've got a lot to lose if you go against your word now, dude. Like, you're just gonna piss everybody off, and no one will. This is like the boy who cried wolf. No one, you can't double and triple down what you like. Now you have to, because people are trusting you to do this, and that's why I trust him now. Is because he's got so much to lose now if he goes against what he's already said. And also, and again, this is something that he's reiterated. He didn't do that at Netflix because that's not what Netflix did. Warner Brothers did that and did it incredibly successfully for over 100 years, and we know that. And we're going to keep doing it. Okay. Now I'm on board. Now, as of January 16th, I feel like, and again, in an ideal world, Um, I would like Warner Brothers to stay Warner Brothers. It kind of is sad, bitter. It's bittersweet. Like I get it. This is the way of the future, but it's bittersweet seeing all these film studios get swallowed up. But if if Ted Sarandos and everybody else in Netflix is saying these things and saying, okay, now you've convinced me. I'm on board now. It is it, it is also worth noting, and I did make him note of this. Since Paramount Skydance launched their bid for Netflix, not the lawsuit, since Paramount Skydance launched their bid for Warner Brothers, Paramount Skydance's stock has dropped nearly 40%. Because I guarantee you, because here's the thing, there are shareholders and there are people at Paramount who are thinking to themselves, what the fuck are you doing? You are embarrassing Paramount. You are embarrassing us. Their stock has dropped nearly 40%. Here's where being petty can, like, seeing Paramount's stock drop nearly 40% since their bid kind of makes me smile, kind of makes me laugh, because it's like, this is what happens when you're a whiny little baby. Okay, so couple more things on this timeline. On January 20th, so literally 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago today, Netflix upgrades Warner Bros. This article is on Variety. 2 weeks ago today, Netflix upgrades Warner Brothers deal to all cash. This article is on Variety, published by Todd Spangler. Netflix has officially agreed to pay all cash for Warner Brothers Discovery's Studios and HBOMAX business. A move aimed at thwarting Paramount Skydance's rival takeover campaign. So they officially went for the all cash offer. Let me see here. Shareholders will vote on this proposed transaction by April. Yeah, this you could read if you want. This article is on Variety, published by Todd Spangler on January 20th. $83 billion deal to all cash. Netflix upgrades Warner Brothers $83 billion deal to all cash. Also, Ted Sarandos, on the same day, continues, and again, this is why I trust him now. He continues and continues to drive home the importance of theatrically releasing, of releasing movies theatrically. and this is again where I talk about, I may have when you may have one opinion about something, but after you make certain observations and when new evidence comes to light, your opinion might change. Or your opinion, yeah. So this article is on Deadline, published by Anthony D'Alessandro. Days after telling the New York Times that Netflix would commit to a 45-day theatrical window after its acquisition of Warner Brothers, the streamer's co-CEO Ted Sarandos reiterated that pro-cinema message on a quarter-4 earnings YouTube video this afternoon. I have in the past made observations about the theatrical business. We were not in the theatrical business when I made those observations, says Sarandos, who has poured cold water on moviegoing in cinemas in myriad public appearances going back several years. When this deal closes, we will be in the theatrical business. Explaining why he finally drank the motion picture Kool-Aid, Sarandos said, "This is a business and not a religion. So conditions change and insights change. And we have a culture that we reevaluate things when they do." He pointed to examples of how Netflix has evolved its business attitudes and made pivots with sports, live programming, and running ads. So they're so yeah. Um, Warner Brothers films will. This article goes on. Warner Brothers films will be released in theaters with a 45-day window, just like they are today. And again, you continue to drive this home. Now I trust you now, and a lot of people are trusting you now. I hope. And again, this is like we trust you. We hope you. We're counting on you. We're depending on you not to break that trust, because if you do, you have so much to lose. So much to lose. So I just wanted to talk about this for a bit, about this has been a pretty seismic shift in the movie industry, and again, the reason I haven't talked about it for a month is because there's been so much information coming over a very short period of time, and I didn't want to, I wanted to present it all to you and give you my thoughts and how my thoughts have evolved over the period of time, over this period of time. I hope I didn't bore you with all this information. I love looking into this kind of thing and seeing how the industry works. And again, and I say this as someone who I was like initially I was like, oh, Netflix owning Warner Brothers, this is death for cinema. And now I don't feel that way. I am convinced that things are going to be okay. I really am. And I hope you are too. I hope that there are two things in our, well, there are multiple things, but there are two There are two things in our culture that I hope never go away. Well, there are several things, but two of them two, two of them are bookstores and movie theaters. You know, and now, I'm trusting Ted Sarandos that movie theaters will never go away, and it sounds like they won't. So I just wanted to provide an hour and a half of insight into this uh, business deal. I hope it was informative. I hope I didn't confuse anybody. I hope that you enjoyed hearing me go on about this. Um, I like talking about this kind of stuff. Um, I will try to be on and do one more episode today. So we'll see what happens. I do have other chores I need to do. So we'll see. I am going to go see Send Help this weekend, the new horror movie from director Sam Raimi that stars Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien. Um, um, is that who it is? Um, uh, sorry, Dylan O'Brien. Yeah, I'm not too familiar with him. I never saw the Maze Runner movies, but I love Rachel McAdams and I love Sam Raimi, and it's a horror movie. So, and I've heard it's awesome. So I'm going to go see Send Help this weekend. Um, so I wanted to provide some insight into this whole thing. Um, I hope you guys continue to enjoy the show. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and as always, I will see you at the movies.